and welcome to Live, Love, Move, Your Body and Your Life. I'm Teresa D'Angelo, and this is a show for you. If you are a woman who is in pain, if you're a woman who's healthy, if you're a woman who wants to get moving again in every aspect of your life, what we do here is we do a little bit of movement, and we also explore ways through experts that are guests on my show about how we can also stay out of the stuck patterns, or not stay, but gently release those patterns maybe that aren't serving us anymore, and finding new avenues that are a little bit more smooth. So let's begin with a little bit of movement wherever you are. Maybe sit in your chair if that's comfortable for you, or stand up. And you can do this if you're working right now and you're just kind of tuning in for a little bit. Just get your body moving. We have a very special guest I think you're going to super enjoy today. And to get ready for Tammy going, we're going to start with a beautiful breath up, reaching your fingertips to the sky, feeling your feet on the earth. And let's take another breath in. Oh, let it go. Feel it moving through your bones. I have a short exercise for you. We're going to touch into all parts of our movement, physically, emotionally, mentally. And let's do vertical first, up and down. Let's press to the sky, press to the earth, and feel that. And let's switch hands, and again, feel that lengthening in your spine. And let's press out with the horizontal, side to side, and maybe opening your feet a little more, get a little more comfortable. Let's take it side to side, and you can look. Ooh, yeah. And now we're going to do depth. So we're going to take front and back. You can push one hand forward, one hand comes back. We can also look at this as past, future. And again, step forward. And then imagine a bubble. And we're going to take our hands around in all of those directions, front, back, up, down, side to side. This is your sphere, your space. We can move any way in this space, right? All right, one more breath up and down. Let's ground a little bit before we connect with our guest today. And one more. Release it all, let it go. Now shake it out. Ooh, yeah, a little bit of movement can go a long way. Come back to sitting if you were standing. Now notice how that feels. Maybe you feel a little bit different in your body. So we're going to now turn it over to a wonderful, wonderful woman who I'm just so pleased to know. Her name is Tammy Goen, and she is a holistic coach with 20 years of energy healing experience, counseling, certifications in EFT tapping, heart math, meditation, and coaching, 9 years as a coach. And her work encompasses something that I can totally relate to. And it's working with highly sensitive people and non-highly sensitive people, Or we can say highly sensing, also, that's a different spin on it. And her work encompasses the mind, body, spirit approach using art, connection with nature, and mindful practices, meditation. And she understands what it's like to be a highly sensing person herself. And she's going to help us, help you today navigate what it's like to be, I'll say, HSP in a non sensitive world. And she loves working with her clients to minimize the overwhelm and the stress. And we're going to get into that a little bit. And she has a beautiful release for us today, a technique for us to use. So I'd like to welcome Tammy Goen. I'm going to change the slide here. There we go. And Tammy, let me unmute you. There we go. Welcome.
Thank you. So good to be here.
Oh, it's beautiful to see you. Let me turn my mic down just a little bit because I think it's just overly sensitive, so to speak. All right, Tammy, I have so many questions.
We could talk for hours.
We could talk for hours, but let's start with the basics. What is being a highly sensing person mean?
It's a really good question. And I love that because when people think they know what it is, sometimes they're not really clear. There's some misconceptions. And then there's others that have never even heard the term, even if they are highly sensing. They'll hear about it and then connect with me and go, wow, I'm just hearing this. It's been me my whole life, but I didn't really know it was a thing. So, as a trait, so highly sensing people, and usually the term is highly sensitive. I like sensing just because there's no stigma with that term compared to sensitive. But basically we process things at a really deep level, give lots and lots of meaning to pretty much everything. It's like being a giant sponge with not very good filters or not enough filters. So everything's big. It's just, it can be overwhelming because it's so big, and it's like having our nervous system is kind of amped more to start with than someone who's not highly sensing. And then we get extra input coming in. And so we can really get to that level of overwhelm easily, which can of course show up as pain or as, emotions that we're not wanting to have, or just being exhausted, not wanting to go anywhere and just kind of curl up under the blanket because we get to that place of overload, sensory overload. But it's also an energetic experience, an environmental experience. Things around us can get to be too much because we take all of it in. Like if you go to a restaurant, someone who's not highly sensing is just paying attention to the conversation at their table and nothing else is really bothering them. Someone who's highly sensing goes to a restaurant and, we're aware of our conversation. We're trying to pay attention to our conversation, but there's the music that's being piped in. There's all the conversations at all the other tables. There's the swinging of the door going in and out as people are delivering food. And there's the ordering and the phones ringing, and all of that comes in equally. And it's not that we're not discerning, we just pick it all up all at once. So that can really be taxing to our system if we're already kind of amped up and then we have all of this input. And then, of course, people look around and say, well, no one else seems to be bothered by this. What's wrong with me? And tend, to feel that level of guilt or of being wrong or needing to be fixed, or, that there's something that you're supposed to get rid of versus just being the way we're wired, because that's the reality. We're actually born this way. We are either highly sensitive or not, highly sensing or not, kind of like being left-handed, right-handed. It's just the way we're wired. And so if we have the tools and the mindset and the understanding about it, then we can use it as our superpower, as it can be, rather than being in that place of overwhelm and just wishing that we weren't sensitive at all. So.
I love that. Using it as a superpower, why? Because why should it be considered a negative thing? And we were talking right before the show today about the term highly sensing or highly sensitive person, and how I've been hearing about it more. And when did it start to become, a more well-known term or?
I would say in the last 5 years, it's really shifted quite a lot. And I think that has to do with social media and, everything digital and the, availability of everything, videos and, people's YouTube channels and things like that. But also people maybe even, increased a little bit during COVID where more people were searching out things just to maybe to fill their time, but also like, oh, I have this time and I'm curious about myself. And so they'll search it out or just things that they, come across. But I mean, it was researched and coined back in the 90s. So it's been a very gradual process, progression since then. But I would say, yeah, in the last 5 years, and definitely probably since COVID, it's really increased. And as we were talking, I mentioned also that even though it's like more on the radar now than ever before, there's not necessarily a complete understanding of what it is. So sometimes it's still seen as like, oh yeah, there's this high sensitivity thing. That's for people that have that to, get under control or get rid of or fix or, take a medication for or something versus just like, oh, this is a different way that people process things and their, different life view. Again, like being left-handed, right-handed. So,
Sure.
yeah.
And I wish you were around years ago when I was working in a high stressful corporate environment and I was diagnosed with autoimmune illness. But well before that diagnosis came to be, I always felt like I wasn't part of that vibration of really like wanting to climb that ladder super fast. And I always felt like I was an anomaly.
Mhm. Yeah, and that's such a common experience. I mean, to have that feeling like it's me and the rest of the world, no one understands me. I'm just weird. I'm wrong. I just don't fit in at all. And then of course there's, it's 20-25% of the population. So there's all these other people that are having that same experience. But if you don't realize it's a trait that's shared, all of those people are having that it's just me experience. So it's so validating when you can recognize, oh, this is a trait, and then maybe you take an inventory or you hear people talking about it and you go, oh, that's me, but it's not just me. I'm part of this tribe of this, I mean, it's the minority, but it's not exceedingly rare or anything, I mean, that's a pretty good percentage, really, if you're looking at 20-25% of the population. That's significant, but in our culture that's designed to not, for non highly sensitives, it's not acknowledged, but it's also not supported. If you're considered sensitive or you have, you react to certain things that others don't or whatever, it's not just, oh, that's the way you react, versus being seen more as like, that's not okay. It's not okay to react that way. Or people have heard this enough in their life, especially in business, like, oh, I'm a leader. I have to do things in this expected way that culture sees as good. And so if I do it this way, it's not as good, even though it's probably more effective, because there's more. I mean, we can go into the benefits and things like that. We can talk about that for hours, but recognizing that piece of it's just different, not wrong or bad or needing to be changed.
Right. It's just
Really does help in the business world for sure. Yeah.
now one thing I was wondering about is the physical pain. I have a little allergy tickle, so I may have to cough. And being in that chronic pain state, many of our viewers here are experiencing that type of pain. And I personally have. And I wonder, have you seen or heard about specific connections with people who are in pain and are highly sensing people?
Definitely. And we tend to have maybe a little higher percentage of chronic conditions, if you will, or experiences, partly because our bodies are more sensitive to things, whether that's food or medications or environment or whatever. So we might react to things more than others. And then there's also the emotional, heart-brain connection. If we have a lot of really challenging emotions because of what we're going through, we're going to affect our immune system and then often be more likely to get sick or some kind of condition or illness. And, if you look at the idea that everything is energy and frequency, there are certain frequencies for different conditions or whatnot, and with our organs and different parts of our bodies. And so we can resonate with certain things more likely if we're in a certain place, if that's making any sense. So we can kind of draw that stuff to us a little bit more easily because we're compromised. If you look at it in terms of, if our immune system is down, if our nervous system is really, really challenged, then we're less likely to have that strong immune system or be able to avoid things and not be affected by things because our bodies are challenged, in that way. And I was thinking about that this morning. I was walking about that idea of like, if we have a belief that something that we tell ourselves about our physicality, and if we're looking at that energy idea, our thoughts are energy, our intentions are energy, our emotions are energy. So if we get locked into some kind of assumption, some kind of belief or pattern, that can push us toward a reaction to that in a physical sense. So for example, let's say your mom and your aunt have low back pain. And so let's say that there's an idea in your mind that, oh, women in my family have low back issues. So if you tell yourself that, because we're so sensitive to all of these things, that's going to really have a lot of impact and a lot of meaning for us. And then we're going to resonate with those frequencies that make it more likely that we'll have certain conditions. And if it's in our mind that it's going to be a low back thing, then that might pop up because we're saying, oh, well, that's the way my family does things, or that's the way things are for me. And then you end up with that. And then we tell ourselves a lot about that. And then those emotions and those thoughts perpetuate that experience. And then we get kind of locked into that assumption that, oh, I'm someone who's prone to low back pain. And there's, likely not anything genetic or physical that suggests that, but we can put that into our heads because we're very susceptible, if you will, to things that other people say, but also to things that we tell ourselves.
That's so powerful. And I know we are going to also talk, and you're going to take us through a technique also that could maybe help with that, because it's like, okay, as a highly sensing person, then what can I do, right, to help this stress not and my mind, right? My mind taking on this thing like, oh, it's a belief, it's going to happen to me. How can we help ourselves with this?
Yeah, and a lot of it is that mindset. And first and foremost is the awareness. So we have to be aware of what we're telling ourselves. So I'll work with this as we do the release exercise. First is becoming aware that we have a feeling or a sensation or experience that we don't want. And acknowledging that we're in that place, not making it wrong, but just saying, okay, that's where I'm at. And then asking, what am I telling myself about this? So if you're saying, oh, I'm telling myself that this is inevitable, or I'm saying, oh, that's just the way things are in my family, or, well, of course I'm going to be that way because I'm dealing with this. And so I'm validated in that, or, whatever it is that you're telling yourself. And it could be something from when you were a child that you just have carried along with you and you weren't even aware of until you started asking yourself. So once you become aware of what you're telling yourself about it, then you can first honor that feeling, and then you can release it and say, oh, I don't need to hold on to this, and shift, reframe what that thought is and say, okay, I'm going to believe this instead. And your body listens to that. Your unconscious listens to that. If you say, nope, this is the new story, this is what I'm focusing on, and you continue with that. You can't just really do it one time. Usually, most people aren't usually good enough in practice yet to just say, oh, that's my reality, I'm going to change that, and it's a done deal. It's a practice thing to get rid of that old belief, that old pattern. But if we can be aware of what that is and then reframe it and practice that, saying, oh, no, right, that's over here, that's not my story, this is my story, and then focus on that, repeatedly, and have that practice, then we can let go of the result of that. We can challenge what our experience is and say, nope, I'm going to opt for a different one. And that can be pain, that can be, depression, anxiety, discomfort of whatever kind, whatever you're experiencing that you're not wanting anymore. You can identify where that comes from, and then say, yeah, I have a choice to look at it differently and to believe something different, and do that reframing, and then put in that new that new story.
Well, that certainly makes so much sense. And, the beginning is awareness. Like my practices also, they all start with awareness.
Mhm.
So beautifully said. And let's go to your technique that you're going to show us too to help us.
Yeah, so this is based on the idea that we do want to honor, acknowledge our feelings, and not see that any of them are ever wrong. They're there to tell us something, make us aware. So part of it is honoring and then being able to move through. So for generality purposes, let's pick anxiety. Let's say we are feeling some anxiety, and you could feel free to replace that with something that you're experiencing right now. But just so I have a word to use, we'll use anxiety. So wherever you are, if you just settle into your position so that you can be pretty comfortable with your spine nice and straight. If you're comfortable, go ahead and close down your eyes. If not, just kind of stare off kind of at an angle toward the floor in front of you and let your eyes soften. And then just focus on your breath at first. Just see if you can slow down the breath, let it get deeper and deeper. And even let the exhale be a little bit longer than the inhale. If you can count if you like. And as we settle in, assuming that you're using anxiety, and if you want to use something else, feel free. Just pay attention to where you're feeling that feeling in your body. Is your jaw tight? Is your stomach clenched? What are you feeling? Where is that anxiety and what's it like? And you can even give it a visual. Is it dense? Does it have a color? What does it look like? What does it feel like? And then really quickly on a 0 to 10 scale, where 10's maxed out and 0 is perfectly peaceful, how much of that anxiety are you feeling right now? And that just lets us know what happens when we're done. And this will be really, really quick and brief, but there should still probably be some movements that you'll experience. So to start with, first, we're going to do that honoring place. And we're going to just say, okay, I'm aware of feeling anxiety. So you'll say things to yourself like, this is me experiencing anxiety. And just breathe through that. Nothing's wrong. Nothing needs to be changed yet. This is my body feeling anxious. I honor that my body is having this experience and it's okay. And allowing that breath to continue to be slow and deep, letting your body know that everything is fine and we're safe. And another nice deep breath. This is me experiencing anxiety. And then with the awareness and idea that with each exhalation, you can let go of things that you don't need, that are not serving you. We're going to now shift into releasing this anxiety. So now, and if you're at home by yourself and you can say this out loud, that's great. It's really powerful that way, but you can just tell it to yourself in your mind as well. So now with each exhale, you're going to say something like, this is my body releasing anxiety. And again, as we're thinking of some emotion that we don't like, we can tend to shorten up our breath, tighten up our bodies. So we're really focused on maintaining that slow, deep breathing. It's okay that we're addressing this feeling. And we take nice deep breaths, and on the exhale, this is me letting go of anxiety. Allowing all of that love and light and energy to come in with every in-breath. And with the out-breath, this is me releasing anxiety. Slow, deep breathing, just allowing with every exhalation as much that wants to release as is there. Just let it all go. It's okay that I felt this. Now I'm letting go of this anxiety. My body knows how to do this. And one more time, nice deep breath in, pulling in all of that air and positive energy. And on the exhale, this is me letting go of the anxiety. And considering time, this is very brief today, but even at this point, go ahead and do a little check-in with your body, see how you're feeling, check on that 0 to 10 scale. How much are you feeling that anxiety? How intense is it? And where you were experiencing it in your body before, has that shifted in what it looks like, how it feels, with the intensity of it? Maybe it's moved, or somehow, whatever that shift is like, just be aware of that. And then a final breath just to kind of reorient back to where you are and be aware of the moment. And here you are on your chair. And I know that was really brief because we don't have a lot of time to do that, but it probably gives you the gist of how you can do that and spend much more time. You can spend a lot more time on the honoring phase, especially if you have a hard time allowing yourself to feel certain things like anger and frustration or anxiety or sadness or whatever it is. Spend enough time on the honoring part until you feel you are really honoring that, and that it really does feel like, oh, okay, it's all right that I'm feeling this. I know it's temporary. I'm going to release it. So I can give permission and then move in to the release. And then you can check in. And if you're like, well, I started at an 8, I'm still a 3, do it again. Just do that until you're feeling like, oh, I'm just feeling pretty peaceful now.
I absolutely enjoy that exercise. And I could feel I had the anxiety felt like it was in the back of my neck. And I love the two statements. This is my body, and I won't get the words exactly right, but I'm feeling anxiety, and this is me releasing.
Right.
Both very active, and it's like you said before, it's honoring of what's here, and it allowed it. And I know the moment, like I felt it release.
Oh,
uh,
good.
4 to a 3, so that was a quick exercise.
Right. And I
Yeah.
think, it's really empowering because it lets us know that we do have control. Oh, you'll hear that, we have control over our emotions, but they're challenging. But when we realize that we do have control to say, oh, I can honor and not make it wrong, and know that it doesn't have to stay here. And that's very empowering.
It sure is. And talk about like some relief from pain, right? Or, that moment, even if it may not be for a long time, but even in the moment alone, it's wonderful.
And sometimes we don't know the mind body connection of like, I don't know why I have this pain or what it's related to. We can start with just the pain too. This is my body feeling tension in my gut or feeling pain in my back or whatever. We can start with the physical experience and give it permission, honor it, and say, okay, it's here for a reason. And you could say things like, I don't know why it's here, but I'm giving, it's here for a reason. Okay. And honoring and then releasing. And that will still create shifts. And then of course, once you realize what that connection is to what you're telling yourself and what that could be coming from, it'll be that much more powerful to be able to release the feelings which are connected with that physical sensation.
And practice. Tammy has a chapter in her ebook that she is graciously going to offer us, right? It's a free PDF, and I have that in our show description on the Win-Win Women Network page of my Live, Love, Move Your Body and Life show. So people can get that if they're viewing this. And Tammy, where else can they find you? Do you want to throw out another URL?
Yeah, the easiest way is to go to Linktree. And if you're not familiar, it's linktr.ee and then / and my name, which is on the screen there, but TAMMYGOEN. And it's got everything that I have on there. So there's a couple other actual ebooks that I've created. The one you mentioned is the chapter in a co-authored book. It's my second co-authored book. And then there's also, other resources on there. There's an inventory if you're not sure, like, oh, maybe I'm highly sensitive, but I don't know. Right on my homepage there's a link to taking an inventory. all of that kind of stuff is all available there on Linktree.
Thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. It's been a pleasure. And this is Live, Love, Move, Your Body and Life. We'll be back next week with some movement to help, again, building on this beautiful theme of highly sensing people, really sensing into our bodies to relieve stress. Thank you so much, and I'll see you next week.
Thank you.